everybody. Sorry, I was looking at all sorts of things. Welcome to So What's Happening Live and on Who's Front of Viking Facebook. I'm Soni Grint, and I'm so glad to be here with you all. I hope some of you are just popping in because for the month of June and July, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing some quick, fast little pop-up Facebooks. And this is going to be for our whole education department, as well as for our our family brands. So you never know where we're going to be popping up in June and July. So I'm really excited. Today I'm just going to do some fun stuff with the Who's Front of Viking Designer Epic 3 and talking a little bit about why I love actually our our guided pictograms. So that's what we're going to be doing here with me today. But all of our educators, like I said, they're going to be doing all sorts of things throughout June and July. And so there are going to be some fast, quick pop-ups, but also don't forget, we've got our regular pop-ups or our regular Facebook Lives as well that are scheduled and that are already ready to go. So you got lots of options to keep yourself sewing and excited for the summertime. That's really what we want to do, is we want to make sure that summertime we get busy, but gosh, it's a great time to sew and to enjoy our machines and what we do. So again, I'm so happy to be here. I'm Soni. Meredith is going to be helping today as well in the chat. So I may be asking her a couple questions. And so please don't hesitate in the chat to write your questions. That is something that we love. Makes it a lot more fun for us when you're asking questions. So everyone, let's get started. I think that's all I needed to let us know to begin with. So like I said, today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the guided pictograms. And Meredith, I'm going to ask this question and maybe you can shoot me an answer. I don't know how many people are on yet because this is kind of like, again, an impromptu thing. But basically, how many people out there that are viewing today are do you have an Epic 3 yet? That's what I want to know, is because if you have an Epic 3, you've maybe played around a little bit with the guided pictograms. If you actually don't have an Epic 3, this is one of the very special features that we have on the Epic 3 that no one else has, that we have on none of our other Who's Front of Viking machines, nor anywhere else out in the market. So this is a cool thing. Why I wanted to do something with the guided pictograms is guided pictograms in themselves are really fun and they're kind of neat to see. Some are a little bit more challenging. So I want to give you some hints on the challenging ones, but also for me, and I know it's hard to see, but can you see my little snail up here, guys? Can you see this little snail? You probably see the fabric more than the snail. I had some really beautiful fabric. I'm going to pull a couple pieces. I had some old kimono fabric that I had purchased, some beautiful batiks, stuff like this, just really beautiful fabrics. And I wanted to use them in a little bit different way. And so that's what I did. So let's go ahead. I'm going to change to another screen. And so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to change to a different screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by choosing the pictogram. So I'm going to choose, actually, I think I'm going to start with the flower today. The flower is what I have over here. So I'm going to start with the flower today. And we're going to actually stitch the flower. I'm going to show you some tips and hints on when you have a different angle, because this one has a lot of different angles, and then how to fill it in and using what's called the single stitch program on the Epic 3. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Let's flip over to the screen here. And this is what I was messing with before, right when you guys came on. So here's my screen. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose and swipe over. And by the way, as I'm swiping over, I do want you to, I didn't say this, but I wanted to make sure I do say this. Welcome to my sunroom. I'm just going to come back. Welcome to my sunroom. It's Friday, and I'm having some friends come over the weekend to sew with me, and we're just going to hang out in the sunroom. So I thought I'd let you guys join with me and hang out in the sunroom with me. So welcome. So now I'm back. I've got my building blocks category and my guided pictogram category. Here is, and I think you can probably hear me okay, Meredith. If you can't hear me, just let me know, Meredith, please. I'm going to choose the guided pictogram, which is the flower, which is number 12. So this is a real pretty little flower, and if I flip over to this screen and zoom in just a little bit, I already made one for you. You can see that. See how pretty? It's just a great flower, and we're going to decorate that all up here in just a moment. So with that being said, back to here. If you have been using and working with guided pictograms, something that's really important, can you all see that there's a little, I know it's a little hard to see, but there's a little arrow that is pointing to the left. Whenever you start sewing, that is the direction that you're going to start sewing in. So I'm going to start sewing to the left. And always, for all guided pictograms, the top is going to be basically above that. So if I'm sewing to the left, the top of whatever you're making is going to be to the left. I hope that makes sense. So here we've got this, one of those little pop-ups. And if I do that again, it says it requires the guidance of projection. So let's go up, and I'm going to choose projection and turn that on. When I'm doing guided pictograms, there are a couple things that I want you to realize is when your Epic 3 starts up, it always starts up with Stitch Preview and Stitch Guide 1 on. I'm going to turn those off. So I'm only going to have the grid, okay, so with me with that. So the projection, all I'm going to do is I'm going to have the grid on. And then I want to make sure my stitch guide for the pictogram itself, I love that I can change this and make it a little bit wider. It's a little bit easier to see that way. All right. So everyone, when you look at this, this confuses some people. I know it confused me to begin with. It looks like a straight stitch, doesn't it? This will, what happens is you're going to straight stitch, but it's going to stitch and then stop, and you're going to turn. Stitch, stop, and turn quite a few different times. And the other piece to the puzzle, just before I leave this, requires the guidance of projection. Okay, so that's what that says. And it says for best visibility, use the open toe foot for the IDF system. Well, I've already confessed to you guys that I'm in my sunroom today for this beautiful Friday. But the other thing I have to confess is I left my, my open toe foot at the office. So I'm going to use the B foot, which comes with your Designer Epic 3. Okay, so as long as you know what you're doing, you can use any foot. But if you have an open toe foot, or if you don't have an open toe foot, you should get one, because I will tell you it'll make it a little bit easier. And I'll show you why here in just a minute, all right? So now let's pop over. And this is what we're going for, everyone. So this flower is what we're going for. I already mentioned that I'm going to start sewing this way. So I'm sewing forward. The top of my flower is going to be to the left. Okay, so I'm going to start sewing in this direction, which is where my arrow is, and the top of my flower is going to be up here. All right, that is true, and that's something I just want you to make sure you guys understand and know, is that's how it always works with the guided pictograms. Wherever you're sewing, the top is going to be the left. So we want to make sure that our flower is standing upright. Let's put that needle down, and then go ahead, and I am going to use my start-stop button. Okay, so by using that start button, once it stops with the needle down, look at that. This is a new guideline. And this is where, for your guided pictograms, you're gonna follow the instructions. It says, before starting to sew again, sew the next part by rotating. I just went the long way around. If you guys, this is what I just sewed. I'm going to align my projected line, so my special projected line with my, basically with what I just stitched. All right, making sense, everyone? I hope that's making sense for you. So here we go. And it just stopped again. Now it didn't change this time, so guess what? I'm gonna take the easy way and see how I'm aligning this as well. So I'm aligning this. So really I'm making this little petal over here. With the grid line, you're gonna see this a few different times. I have to confess to you all, if any of you have ever heard me in a class or taken classes from me before, I'm just gonna set this down. I do not sew straight. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna tell you all, I don't sew straight. It doesn't work for me. I sew kind of wonky a little bit. So that grid line is gonna help me sew straight. And that's why I've fallen in love with this machine, because it is just amazing. So let's go back. Now I've got this nice align here. Let's go ahead. Start again. Needle down. We're going to turn and start again. And this is where the grid comes into play for me, everybody. The grid really comes into play. I'll try and keep my hand out of the way. I've got this aligned. Y'all see that, right? So I've got this aligned back here. But now that grid is going to take me right where I need to go. So again, helping me sew straight. So see, it's just going right toward that. See how that grid makes it so easy. Let's come back. And let's sew again. I have to admit, as I'm going along here, I get lost in these little pictograms. And see, I'm aligning here. Now, this is also, I tend to put, can you see? I think you can. I tend to put my line right in, almost in front of where I stitch. Can you all see that? So I kind of put that just almost right in front of, not necessarily on top, almost just right in front, just because of how the needle is. And then let's get started again. And last one, using my grid to help me go to the right place. And we're going to stop. Now this right here, you think that everything went away. You don't see right now. You can't see a stitch line, can you guys? So because you can't see the stitch line, what I want to show you is if you had an open toe foot, it would be easier. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be real careful. And I'm going to raise the presser foot. And this is almost one of those things where you say, don't do this at home, right? Can you now see my foot was actually hiding my line? So what that now means is, now, you know, it's, I'm turning this as if my needle was still in the pivot, but see how I'm going to align this with this piece. Like I said, sometimes you don't see it because it's hidden by either the foot or the way the projection is. It only has a certain amount it can project. So now see where it is. So what I'm now going to do is is I'm going to slide my foot back on. And I'm going to bring my thread up just a little bit there. And then I'm going to put my needle down where it was. Meredith, I don't know if there were any comments, but I just want to make sure you all realize that that's why sometimes those more intricate pictograms are harder to do, right? And so that's why I wanted to share with you, kind of notice it's in back or it's to the side. So that makes it really easy to work with. I hope you guys can see that. And now the other thing that was super important for me was, and I'm sorry, let's get back to this camera, is I went ahead and I did a test, right? So that's my little test run. And I knew that this next line was going to be my straight stitch down here. And it also aligned with what I had going on there. So, all right. So now it's going to do a little decoration for the flower. And then come straight. All right. So let's get back to our aligning. And I never know which way is easier. I don't know. It doesn't matter, by the way. So you can turn clockwise or counterclockwise. It doesn't matter. And then this one, again, this is a little trickier to see because I'm aligning back here, but I'm also using that grid again. So I'm using that grid to get right up in there. All right. Crazy one over here. That there. Go. And one more. The only reason why, guys, I know there's one more is because I've sewn this a couple times. And again, using my grid to make sure that that's aligned. And there is my new little flower. Yay. It's the little things in life for me. I think that's so pretty. However, I do also want to give you a couple other tips on this because the pictograms themselves are really nice. They are quite beautiful, but you'll notice that on both my, everything is backwards for me. I'm sorry about that. I keep turning the wrong way. But basically on this shirt, can you see how there's fabric? So I used basically some fabric as an applique with my pictogram. And also I filled in some decorative stitches. So that's the fun part, is doing more with it, right? Is just not just letting it be those lines, which we see, which are quite lovely, you know, so they're really pretty and you can use decorative stitches. But now what I wanted to do is I wanted to fill in my leaf, right? So I wanted to fill in my leaf. So let's go ahead. I'm going to come back to the screen here for a minute. And with that, let's choose, okay, so let's choose, get out of the building blocks. We often will use like satin stitches, that sort of stuff. So those are our satin stitches up here. You can see them. We'll use these in different places and different things. But I wanted to step out, and I'm actually choosing one of the vintage stitches. So similar question as earlier, guys, no matter what Husqvarna Viking machine you have, most of them now have these vintage stitches. Have you ever played with the vintage stitches? Because they are just really beautiful. There are like cross cross stitches and other stitches that work with this. What I did is I happened to choose stitch number, pardon me, my finger right over the top, stitch number 19. And with this stitch, okay, so with this stitch, what I have is I have the opportunity to do a couple things. There is the ability to now taper on this stitch. And what I did is I went ahead and I tapered only at the beginning at a 30-degree angle. And did you guys see how that just changed? I'm going to do that again so you can see how it actually changes. So there it is at the beginning. And then when I touch that, see how it's actually going to taper that stitch up just a little bit, okay? Yeah, I'm glad you were able to do the, use the grid projection. It makes it so much easier. Sorry, I just saw the notes, so I'm glad that that's a quick help for you today. And now that I have this, what we're going to do is I'm going to go back into projection, everybody. And this time I am going to choose to have stitch projection. Okay, so this may be a little cumbersome because I'm going to go back and forth a little bit here. So let's zoom in even a little bit more. And I'm just going to scoot over a little bit. What I want to do is, can you see with the stitch projection here, I want to fill in both of these leaves. And I'm going to start with this one here. So I want to fill in both of these leaves with this little stitch, with this vintage stitch. Right now, it's a little too big. Can you see that? It's a little too big and it's a little too long. So I have a couple options right now. The first thing I'm going to do, let's go back to our screen again. I don't know if you all have used the stitch repeat here. The stitch repeat is really quite wonderful because there is something that is called single stitch program. And it's going to be tricky because I'm going to go back and forth. Right now, there's only that little bitty taper portion. There's only one part of my stitch showing. And if I move it out, can you see that's that little part of the stitch? So that's what's going to come, and I'm going to fill in here. Now, let's jump back. I hope I'm not going to make you too woozy jumping back between cameras. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more stitches. So see, it's probably a little hard to see, but I've added 4 stitches, and then I can take away. So not only is it showing on screen, but the beauty of stitch projection is now, check this out. See how it is showing me how much and how that stitch is going to look exactly in my leaf. And notice when I put that last one in, it's too many. So now that is going to show me and give me the exact size for my leaf. And the other beautiful thing about this that I love is I can also see directly with I'm changing my stitch width. And so now see how that fits perfectly within my leaf. I know that I can't see you guys, but I hope you're smiling because that is just so darn cool. Because now I've got this width, I've got it tapered, I've got it in the exact place. So it really is, using that stitch repeat is really wonderful. So stitch repeat, and I think that's great. Now there's one more bit that I want to show you, and it has to do with the grid. So if you haven't been using your grid, I want to show you one more thing about the grid. I think many of you know that the grid size, grid position, that sort of thing, we can adjust them, but it's always the question of why, or why would I ever change that? What I want to share with you is, let's go back to our projection, and I don't know if I can zoom in too much more. Yeah, I can get a little bit further. What I hope you can see here is see how my grid is in the middle of the stitch, which is where it should be. It should be in the middle of the stitch. But with our stitch preview, it goes away after when we start sewing. So what I'm going to do is with our position, I can actually move the grid. So I just moved it a little bit. Now watch on screen. I'm going to actually move that position until it aligns perfectly with the edge of my stitch. Can you all see that? I got quieter. Well, I got quieter for a more effect here, guys. So now that I have this, and I know that this is where the stitch is going to be, when I start sewing, so now I'm ready to start sewing. When I start sewing, the grid is now my guideline. So now the grid is truly showing me exactly where my stitch is going to end up. And because I used the stitch repeat, it gave me the perfect size, or the perfect number, I should say. And everyone, look at that. See how that filled in just perfectly. So that was just really, really cool to me, how I could use all of the projections, right? So not only just the stitch preview or the grid or the guidelines, using them all together like that. Wow, that was, when I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, that was, why didn't I do that before? You know, so really a great way to do that. And the last thing before I leave this one, and then we're just going to play a little bit. So we're just going to play with a couple of the others that I have. But when I'm moving to my next, sorry, get you over here. When I move to this piece over here, right, this leaf, I have to do a couple things. I either have to figure out how to, if I turn this way, right, if I want the jagged edge, I guess, if I want those to go up, I have to mirror. But when I come to the screen, when I mirror this, I want you to watch, and I want you to watch up here, okay? Because when I mirror this, look at how funky that angle is. And that's because it's trying to taper in a different angle. So what I needed to do, and again, because of the visual on this, it was so great, I actually had to flip to the other angle to make sure it was going to taper in the right way. And now once I did that, I can come back here, and you guys have probably figured out already that I need to move my grid just a little bit too. So I'm going to go back and move my grid so it's going to align the other side, right? So there we go. So now that it's aligning that side, I would stitch that out. Okay. So, all right. So any questions about that? I mean, that's kind of, once I realized that I could do all this stuff and use the projection in a little bit different way than I was used to, I was like, oh man, so now I'm decorating all over these little guided pictograms. So let me show you, besides my blouse, I had a little jumper here. So a little kid's jumper. This one, you know what I'm going to do? Let's try. Let me go ahead. I'm going to turn off projection for a minute. And let me go to the machine. I think it'll be easier if I zoom out for you to see this. So now with this little guy, I used some really fun fabric, right? So with my fish, whoa, sorry about that. Just got a little crazy with that. But see, I used some really fun fabric with the fish here And I used an eyelet as his eye and put a little crystal in there. I probably should not have done that if this was really for a child. So I would have to secure it in a better way. But I just thought that was really cute for a sample just to run through that. And then this one, can you all see how there are lots of really great, this I used a circle instead of an eyelet and still put the crystal on there. But look at this stitch. Very different than, I've often used scales on the fish, so scallops. But basically this one I thought, oh, that's just really interesting. And I also put it in the tail. So I want to share with you how I did this. Okay, so I want to share with you how I did this with, again, that same thought process on projection as well as stitch preview. So back to projection on. I've already stitched my little fish here. So I've already got my fish, at least one fish stitched. Ooh, say that 3 times fast. That was tricky for me. Let's go back and choose some stitches. And this time, I am going to go into the scallop stitches. I'm going to turn off my stitch repeat for a moment here. And let's come to the screen so you can see this. So I just went from the vintage stitches to the scallop stitches and satin stitches. And normally with the fish, this one, it lends itself very much to the fish because what you end up seeing is it does look like fish scales. So if I come back over here, you can see. But again, the beauty of the stitch preview is not only can I see where to start and stop, but if I go back to that stitch repeat, I can see exactly how many I need. And I don't know if you can see, I'm a little lacking here, right? So a little lacking with my size, so that all I need to do is come back, and I'm not going to move the screen, but what I am going to do is I'm going to change the length just slightly and see how it just filled it right in. So by changing the length, you can make it shorter or longer, and then you can get that exact size that you need for the fish. But I want to show you this is my new fun favorite thing. So that's why I'm sharing it with you on this little pop-up, is I'm going to come back here, and we had a lot of different edges. The edges I actually used on my snail. Come here. And as I look through these, I don't know, this one right here, number 23, it's kind of a little hard to see, but this one I have never used before. I've never used that stitch. We have so many of those beautiful stitches that we don't use, but check this out. Let me show you what it looks like. Isn't that interesting? I thought, wow, that's really kind of cool, very fun, that you can do this. And then after I figured out, okay, so that's fun, I'm going to go back to that stitch repeat, single stitch program, 2 of these. Now this is a little too big. So because it's a little too big, I'm just going to take my stitch length slightly smaller, and here we go. And there it is. Isn't that great? Like I said, once all of these connections came to me, I thought it was wonderful. And then I also wanted to put one in the tail, but I knew that I only needed 1, so I changed the single stitch program to 1. But I also needed the length a little bit less and the width a little bit less. But hopefully you're seeing that real time by using your stitch preview as well as your grids, etc., and that single stitch program. And it just filled right in, just perfectly. That was so easy, so fun. That's my, I fell in love with the little fish for that. I thought it was great. So what I'm going to do, let's come back. And I want to see if there are any questions, because with our pop-ups, I will tell you guys, they're going to be short. Man, could we go on forever, right? We're educators. We love to share our ideas and things. But what I wanted to do was just give you hopefully some hints, tips, doing really like showing you how to make that, what I would say the great guided pictogram, just elevating it, right? Making it so it's going to be unique to you. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great with the, with applique as well as the decorative stitches, using the single stitch program as well as the grid to allow you to get things going. So, Meredith, I don't know, if there are no other questions, you said there's no specific questions right now, guys. If there are no questions, I hope you had fun. Thanks for joining me for my pop-up in my sunroom with you all. And I hope you have a great, and then actually Meredith said, if you do have questions later, or if you didn't watch it live and you're watching later, we'll keep looking back to see if there are any questions, okay? So anyway, we'll definitely watch for that. So everyone, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me, and have a great summer. Keep sewing, because I know, man, with my Epic 3, I've got so many ideas right now. So thanks again. Have a great summer. Bye.